Interview.
Turning Point Fall of Liberty is a first-person action game that's set in New York, Washington, D.C., and London. And it's about what would have happened if Winston Churchill had died in 1931. And from that real turning point in history, basically Europe falls to the Third Reich. And in 1950, at kind of a height of American isolationism, a Nazi war machine invades the U.S. Turning Point really evolved out of, I think, current events. We have a lot of artists at the company, and they like to explore things that are relevant to their lives and what they're dealing with and what they're thinking about. And you know, looking at like a situation like 9/11, a horrific experience for the world, all that plotting, all that planning came down to one person in the cockpit of an airplane that followed through with the plan. And in that moment, that individual changed the course of history. So evolving that into a structure where we can kind of really look at choices. What choices do you make? Where does that take you? What are the consequences of actions? That's really at the heart of Turning Point. So in this game, the war is personal. You don't play a soldier, you don't play a super soldier, you don't play part of a big military operation. You're really just the underdog trying to struggle with what does it mean to be a citizen and what do you fight for when you fight for liberty.
Raus! Raus!
There are 8 chapters, if you like, but each chapter encompasses a number of different breakpoints and story points that the player will go through. The opening of the game, as Craig said before, really covers off one day in New York, but at very different, in very different presentations. You saw the opening with a dawn raid. You saw a little snippet of the final part of the escape, but in the midst of that there's also a dusk standoff between this awesome invading force that's coming in and this really kind of pathetic attempt at resistance, which again is not what you're used to in a war game. It's generally, here come the invaders, here come the, you know, woohoo, America's coming to save the day, and that's not what this game is all about. This is a very different experience. We haven't, or Craig hasn't covered everything that's in the game today. These are just like the primary locations and story points, if you want. There is more that we will want to reveal. I wouldn't even have to say countries there, actually, but there are different locations, for want of a better word. It was a decision to set it in a period of the war, albeit a twisted version of that. But as we said during the presentation, there's no lasers, there's no... the whole point of What If is that it could be a very... you could come out at the end of the day and reflect on what happened that day and ask yourself that question all the time. When you put that in the context of World War II, you want people to believe it. You don't want them to suddenly go into the realms of fantasy and turn off people who don't want sci-fi. It has to be, for example, in terms of game mechanics, you're not a soldier, therefore the team worked very hard on making a hand-to-hand combat system, which is not something you've seen in a first-person shooter to this point. To the point where we take the camera away and show it as its most explicit, its most violent, its most brutal. All the series of moves that you use with your hand, with your fists, with anything you can lay your hands on to beat the opponent down is very consistent with that what-if reality situation. And it's the question we get asked all the time, or generally the first question is, why do you want to do another World War II game? Well, because we want to give people an experience that they're kind of used to, but ask yourself, these cataclysmic points in history where the world can change, this first evolution of that is simply a setting that they're used to, but it opens up a whole new horizons for where we can take this franchise in the future.